Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and in this video I'm going to be talking about putting together the best EDC for you. Given your own limitations, your own preferences, lifestyle, we're all different, we all want different things. So there's a few things that I believe you should have no matter what, but I'm going to be trying to adjust that to your different requirements. Before I start with this though, let me just say, all of this means nothing if you don't have the right information, the right knowledge, and for that I always recommend my books. The Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse, based on my first-hand experience in 2001 with the economic collapse in Argentina, and the one I recommend the most for you folks, Street Survival Skills, which is mostly about being safe out there in complicated times. Not so different from what you're seeing right now in many cities across the United States and what you're likely to see in the future across the board in many other parts. Folks, these are topics that you've probably seen a pile of already on YouTube. Everyone does his own video about EDC, guns, knives, etc. Keep in mind, we're not all the same in this regard as well. My experience is a little bit different. I've been in different parts of the world. I lived, of course, in Argentina, like I mentioned before. I lived in the United States and a couple other countries as well. I've been living in places that are very safe and in places that are very dangerous and very complicated. And that has been giving me a quite bit of first-hand knowledge and experience. And upon that, I've been studying, learning, and researching this seriously for many years. So that's where my advice is coming from. Keep that in mind. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Close to 60,000, that would be awesome. So let's get started. One of the things I hear a lot is, look, it's very nice to have this or that gun, knife, whatever, but my budget is very limited. What is it that you advise for my case? This is something I get a lot in my Spanish channel. It's called Supervivencia Moderna. And yeah, especially in Latin America, there's quite a bit of restrictions in terms of firearms, so that's one of the things that people struggle the most with. And in terms of budgets, that's also a bit of a stretch for a lot of people. Now, for you guys in the United States, mostly this is what I would suggest. Keep in mind that with everything going on, I would really start with getting a proper firearm. Again, none of this works for you if you don't have the knowledge, the skills, and the training. This goes as well for firearms. So, if you buy your Glock, if you buy whatever gun you choose to carry, get yourself proper firearms training with a qualified instructor. Chances are there's someone reasonable, someone with a good reputation close enough. That is some of the best money you can invest so as to be well prepared. If you don't have proper firearms training, even if you think you are knowledgeable and know how to handle a gun and you watch a couple of YouTube videos, it is not. It is not the same thing as actually doing it, getting the training. Invest in yourself and get that. In terms of guns, I always suggest Glock. It is the most reliable, lightweight, easy to handle, parts available everywhere. If you combine all of that, no other gun comes close to the Glock. And that's why most professionals around the world choose Glock. If you want to go with something else, by all means, be my guest, but Glock is what I would suggest. Glock 19, Glock 17. If you want to go with a Glock M40, by all means, it's a great caliber, 357 SIG, but something along those lines, this type of size, 17, 19 would be my suggestion. There I have my HK-P7M8, fantastic firearm. Now, it's a little bit more compact, a little bit more of a flat grip, but it is such a great gun in terms of how well it shoots and the kind of accuracy you get out of it. I've never been a fan of these mouse guns that now people are starting to realize that they're not such of a good idea, especially with everything going on. You see bands of left-wing lunatics and communists going after people. I mean, man, this past weekend they got into a fight with some right-wing guys that were protesting, and they started fighting one another. You have to be a lot more aware of all of this. And one of the things people are realizing is, I may be attacked by a gang of criminals, by a gang of scumbags, and it's not going to be enough with my little mouse gun, 5-6 shots. I want to have a decent firearm. All right, that goes in terms of capacity, that goes in terms of shootability as well, and accuracy. If you have a crowd of people, you want to be very accurate with that. That's why I think that the P7 is a fantastic gun. Of course, it's more of a collector's piece and such. So again, go with the Glock. That would be my advice. If you can, get yourself a proper light for it. The O light is very compact. It's a good way to go. In terms of body armor, Are you going to be wearing this all day long? Probably not. But if you're going to be going to places that you know there's an increased chance of you being attacked, again, I don't have to tell you this. You've been seeing it already. It's something that's happening out there on the streets. If you can have a gun, maybe you want to go with a can of pepper spray. Saber Red, a good choice. Maybe not the largest one, but a smaller one. Not too small though. Don't go with the tiniest little, most punny little can of spray you can find. That's kind of sometimes not enough, especially if you have a crowd of people that you want to be spraying on. Man, if you're being chased by a crowd like that, you want to have a firearm, but the non-lethal option is always good to have. So make that decision yourself. See what fits your situation best, depending on where you live and the kind of lifestyle that you have. Now, specifically when it comes to the EDC part, there's a few things that I talk about in my book and I think you should have, besides, of course, your wallet, your cell phone. You want to have a flashlight, you want to have a lighter, a multi-tool, and a knife. The multi-tool specifically is something that over the years and living in different parts of the world, this has been my constant companion, my Leatherman Charge TTI. This is the tool. If I couldn't have anything else, this is the one tool I would want to have. It's like, kind of reaching there with a flashlight. I love to have a flashlight along with this because you just cannot replace a flashlight when you really need it. But this is, I mean, I've done so much with this and it's come in handy so many times. I'm still surprised that I don't see a proper full-size multi-tool mentioned more often. So keeping all this in mind, I want to have a knife, multi-tool, flashlight, and a lighter would be a good idea too. Look around your house. You probably have something that could work as a proper knife. Now, this is not a tactical folder by any means. This is actually my grandfather's knife, and I keep it, yes, as a something I'm not going to be messing with. But if you have an old knife, there's a few things you could do. For example, you could add a clip to this knife if you play around with it a little bit, a screw, a bit of folded metal like I did here. That's just what I did in this Victorinox knife, right? You could put a clip here and you could even drill a hole through here and put a stud, a screw like you have here in your cold steel, and that would make it a knife that you could open single-handedly quite easily. And it's a very decent knife, but it's not tactical in that regard, although it can be quite improved quite a bit if you are inclined to do so. In terms of flashlights, you have all sorts of prices. At the very least, get yourself a tiny flashlight like this. In your keychain, keep a LED lens or K2. I'm going to be leaving links, as I always do, for most of this stuff. This is one of the more budget-friendly flashlights. These are very cheap. The bad part, though, is that it uses some of these watch batteries, those little button cells, and I think it's a lot better if you just spend a couple more bucks and get a proper AAA flashlight. Oleg has a nice model. I'll leave the link there below. I've used it a few times and I have it somewhere else, but that's a nice model. But have some light. One of the things I hear about, besides the more limited budget, is I just don't want to have a pile of crap in my pockets, dude. I just don't want to do that. Well, you can have some very decent tools and go with a very compact format. If you are like a petite lady or a guy that just wears a suit all day long and it just doesn't go along with your wardrobe to have something like this, you can go with something minimalistic. In this case, you would have a flashlight, you would have a very tiny but still there knife, and you have a pair of tweezers and scissors. This is a fantastic tool for its size. I've been recommending this one for years. PS4. This is just a fantastic multi-tool for the money. It's affordable and it's compact. You just have no excuse to have these two at the very least in your keychain if you're in any way inclined to have the right tools with you. Okay, this is actually my wife. She saw this one and she took it for herself and she says, what are you doing with my multi-tool? I'm just doing a video for YouTube. Okay, just give me back my little red tool when you're done with it. She loves this thing and I completely understand why she does. It's a fantastic tool for the money and for the size. In terms of of lighters, it's one of those basics of preparedness. You just want to have a lighter, and you can just go with a cheap Bic lighter. Those are reliable enough. These are clipper, and you have like the orange, more visible lighter for if you're more of an outdoorsy type. You want to have something more visible. If you want to have more of a, nice looking EDC, you can go with these metal ones. These are also very cheap, and they are refillable, and you can even replace the flint. This is a nice lighter for the money, very cheap. I'll see if I find it in Amazon. I'll leave the link. If not, try looking around in some local stores, but this is a good option for a very fine looking reusable lighter and super affordable. Now, if you want to get yourself an actual tactical folder, one of the better ones in terms of a tight budget is the Kershaw. I think this is the lifter model. This is a very decent folder. You have this flipper here, and this is an assisted open knife. So with just a little bit of pressure, it just flips open. And this is a very decent knife as a tactical folder. If you ever have to use something like this for self-defense, or just cutting a whatever, this is a nice knife. And I've had one of these that I broke the tip out of my own fault, contacted Kershaw, they sent me a new knife. That's a nice thing of, even on a budget friendly knife, buying quality brand knives means that you have that taken care of, which is always nice. And you can go with something like the German Army knife. This is a knife that I carried for quite some time, especially in places that are a little bit more restrictive legally speaking. Of course, keep all that in mind. Whatever legal restrictions you have, you just adapt to that. A typical Victorinox, just a great option to go with as well. In terms of budget, you can go with a proper size multi-tool and doubling almost like a tactical folder with some of these cheaper Leatherman knives. The Wingman and the Sidekick, those two are great options, and you're going to be covering those two bases with one tool. A little bit more money, but man, this is going to be taking care of those quite nicely. If you're more of looking at an outdoors type of EDC, you may want to consider something like this, the Victorinox Soldier. You have a folding knife, very decent size blade, and it's going to be locking into place single-handed. You don't have a clip, but you probably can find something aftermarket, so as to add it there, or buy one yourself, or make one yourself, I mean. And you have, again, more of an outdoors set of tools, but you have a great saw there, and you have your screwdriver. It's also used as a prying tool. It even locks into place. So this is a very decent tool that could, to some extent, double as a multi-tool given the actual accessories that it has, and a very decent folding knife. So this is more of a folding knife with some tools added to it. This is more of a multi-tool with a very decent folding knife in the mix as well, right? So depending on what you're looking for more, you have those two. If you're going to be carrying a pack maybe, and besides that you want to complement it with a good multi-tool for the money, the Rebar has a bunch of different, this is like a little toolbox. It's not easy to access, it's not one-hand opening or anything, but in here you have a pile of very decent tools, and you may keep this in your pack or whatever bag you're carrying. Again, thinking more of a pack thing rather than in your pockets. In terms of flashlights, you can go with something a little bit bigger. The thing about buying no brand Chinese lights is that usually the quality is not all that great, and many of those may fail. These ones, EMTE, are quite decent. These are very bright and have a total internal reflection head there. These are pretty nice for the money if you find these around, but try buying something that it's a known brand. Phoenix does some nice flashlights. This is a 4.7s, no longer in business, I believe, but these were quite decent for the money, on the same line as a Phoenix light. If you want to go for more of a tactical EDC, then something like this may be what you're looking for. A nice cold steel knife. There's a bunch of different options. Cold steel knives usually are very sturdy, strong folders, decent sized knives as well. You have your clip, single-handed opening on both sides, and this would definitely be the kind of knife for a defensive role, absolutely, for a utility role as well. You can pry nicely with this knife, and that you can be complementing this with an actual proper Leatherman wave, which is maybe one of the best multi-tools you have for your money. These two would be a great setup for someone that has this, a full-size pocket EDC setup with an actual tactical light with a clicky button there in the back. Using this along with a firearm, I would suggest having your light in your gun as well, but a tactical flashlight may be something that you want to have, depending on what you're looking for. And then kind of like premium top of the line EDC, what is it that you're getting? There's really not all that much difference between these in terms of how useful they are or the kind of things that you can do with them, but you have premium materials and handcraft and manufacturing. For example, these three ZTs. I like ZT. Zero Tolerance is a very good brand. They make solid, reliable knives. Maybe the cold steel is even stronger in terms of the locking mechanism, but here you're talking about high quality premium steels, and yeah, more on the fancy premium side of things. This is the Zero Tolerance 0550, a fantastic knife. Titanium handle, frame lock, you have your clip there, very nice steel, S35VN, and man, yeah, this is the kind of knife that you're gonna be holding on for quite some time. It's not gonna be wearing as much as some of the other knives in terms of the materials used in this thing. You can even replace these G10 scales with something even fancier, carbon or handmade ones with different designs. There's a bunch of stuff to select from, and all of this titanium. And I guess that it's not so much as of what you can cut with it or not. It's more about how reliable or how the steel lasts while using it. My experience, for example, with nice steel, like in the case of the Leatherman Charge TTI, this is the exact same as your wave, but with a fancier material here with titanium scales and nicer steel. When it comes to premium steels, it's not as going to be cutting anything that other steels won't. It's going to be cutting just as well as any 420 HC. But a nice steel like this S30V means you're going to be sharpening it less often. It's harder to sharpen nice steel like this because it's a bit harder and it doesn't wear as fast, and you have to sharpen it less often. You can just use it for, I don't know, maybe 40-50% more than some of the less premium steels, just to put it some way. So that's nice, and it also means that on a long-term analysis, this is the kind of steel that's not going to be wearing as much as the cheaper steel. So for example, this tool that I've had for almost 2 decades now, with a cheaper steel, I'm sure I would have worn it a bit more than this one already is. I've resharpened this more times than I could possibly remember, but that nice fancy steel holds on over time. Other than that, it's the exact same thing as a wave. So make your own decisions as to what you want to get. Maybe one of the nicest folding knives ever made, the Hinder Design 0561. Man, beautiful blade. This is an LMAX steel. Again, titanium handle there, and G10. Fantastic knife. But yes, I feel this is more of a kind of like a luxury, I want to have some nice things kind of EDC. It's not going to be doing anything else than your cold steel folder for less than half the money, or man, what is it, like, yeah, a quarter of what this one costs is capable of. You're gonna be cutting stuff, stabbing stuff just as well. But yeah, if you want to get the premium stuff, that's no reason not to go for it if that's what you want to do. It is a beautiful knife, and it's a pleasure to own and handle some of these things. The one I use mostly myself is a Zero Tolerance 0630, which is an Emerson design. Fantastic knife. It has the hook here from Emerson that just deploys on its own when you just pull it out of your pocket, and once you get the hang of it, it's automatic. Just pull the knife out of your pocket, the blade just snaps open just like almost like an automatic knife. And man, very nice blade shape, fantastic steel, just a kind of thing, it's a pleasure to have and handle. In terms of flashlights, sure, you can go with a Surefire. Surefire doesn't make flashlights with very nice, man, maybe that's not the way of explaining it, but usually if you want to get like titanium, Surefire is more of a tactical company in terms of their flashlights. If you want to have nicer materials like titanium, Claris, Eagle, Tech, some other brands are the ones you're going to be looking for, and these are fantastic flashlights. Maybe Surefire is not stretching the technology as some other cheaper brands are, but you have the option of going for a nice flashlight. Yes, what I like about these specifically is that not only are they well made, from Claris is a good company, never had a problem with them, but I should say Phoenix is also just as good, it's also a good company. But in terms of wear, these flashlights, you will have these in your pocket for years, and it's not going to be wearing as much as your anodized aluminum flashlight. There's nothing wrong with this. This just looks a little bit fancier and better. It depends on what you want to have. In terms of lighter, go with whatever you feel fits your needs best. I like the Zippo, but I don't like the Zippo way it works. I just replace those with a Thunderbird insert that you just refill it with your butane, like a butane lighter, and you have the case of your favorite zipper, whatever that may be, and that's it. That's what takes care in terms of your lighter. So folks, just a little bit of an approach just to cover different bases depending on what you're looking for and what you need. Again, I'll leave the links for some of those stuff, but remember, the skills, the knowledge is always going to be more important than anything that you have at hand. But having said that, over the years, it's my understanding, and I'm very firm about this, what you have with you is what you're going to be having to work with in an emergency. You will never get an invitation for an emergency, a disaster, or shit hit the fan. All of those are going to be happening when least expected, so that's why your EDC is so important. Folks, until our next video, subscribe to the channel, links below for some of this stuff. Take care.